Welcome back from that short break. You're still watching New Vision TV News, and now we take a look at the news in business.
Paul, a power and energy company has applied to construct a dam along River Nile, specifically in Murchison Falls. Now, this has also sparked controversy. Do we really need a dam there?
Well, maybe we start from the begining. So,
there's a beginning.
Yes. The Electricity Regulatory Authority has, I think it's ERA, which has, the Ministry of Energy has a plan like of where you can generate power in Uganda, hydroelectric power, whatever the case may be. On the River Nile, there are sites. The last I had, several sites, all of which can generate up to 4,000 megawatts. So that's including even Kira, Naruwale, and Bujagali, and of course Karuma and Simba now.
Yes.
But the other sites, one of them happens to be the Murchison Falls. It's just a natural, it's just a, how do you call it, a technical thing that you just need a certain water to fall a certain distance and you can generate power. So it's one of those sites earmarked as a possible hydropower generation site.
And they're mentioning 360 megawatts. Paul, do we need the extra just 360?
Well, we need all the power we can get.
I know.
It's been estimated, I think, in the National Planning Authority documents that to get to upper middle income, which would be about, I think, $5,000 per capita, you need about 40,000 megawatts of power. So imagine if River Nile has 4,000, where are you going to get the remaining 36,000? So any power we can get is important. I think the argument obviously is, this is our tourist attraction and all that kind of thing.
There's a petition going on.
I think the argument cannot be that tourism will make more money than the power generated. That can't happen. The spillover, the ripple effect from power. Right now only about 30% of Ugandans have access to power.
Yes.
If you double that number, this country will be totally changed. It will be transformed. So you don't only think of power being generated and how much we will pay for it, but all the other economic activity will be generated. So the dollar for dollar argument doesn't hold. I think the argument for the people who would be against this thing is that this is our unique site. You take it away, we'll never have another one. You can't create another one. It's a beautiful thing to have. It's something that people will come and watch, will come and tour about and stuff like that. I think that's the strongest argument that people who are against the dam should be making.
So we need the dam.
We need the power. As you said earlier, the dam doesn't necessarily have to be there. There are other sites along the line. As I said earlier, we probably have dammed that river for about 600 Karuma, 183 at Simba, that's 783 plus 200, 250 here. So we have about 1,500 thing. We have another 2,000, potentially 2,500 on other sites. So maybe we should look at the other sites.
Yeah, I think I like the idea. We should look at other sites.
Yeah, then we can come back to this one later, maybe,
much
and then
later, after it has generated us some forex.
Yes, or we can decide as a country that this one is a no-go zone. We can just put our foot, not because you chances are you could make more money from power on that site, but we are saying this is our thing.
Please,
this is what we are known for. We want to keep it, and we are within our rights as a country to do that.
All right. Thank you, Paul.
You're welcome.
I leave you with Ruth Naseje taking you through what's coming up next.
Thank you, Lynn, for that in business. We now take a look at our Daily Pal of Africa series, and today it is Kidepo Valley National Park. Now, this national park is found in Karamoja region, northeast of Uganda. Interesting at Kidepo are its animals. The Savannah region travels through the bag, and above all, the experience of a Ugandan adventure. Kidepo Valley National Park is a park like no other, filled with almost 100% of Uganda's wildlife, be it animals, flora, or the wild experience. The national park is in the northeastern region of Uganda, particularly in Kabonga district. A trip to Kidepo is either by road transport or by air. Whichever way you decide to reach here, be assured of the greatest experience. The first reception here is the Karimajong or the Ik tribe. They introduce to you one of Uganda's diverse cultures, from the dances to the food and then the craft work. All these are a true representation of the people in the north. Kidepo derives its name from its seasonal river called Kidepo. The word Kidepo in Inga Kirimajong, a local dialect, means picking up something from down. You could describe Kidepo as conservation on a large piece of land at its best. Each and every wild animal species you could ever imagine is here. Now, to get to these creatures, a travel guide has to give an orientation and thereafter hit the road. The game drives through the park take about 3 to 4 hours. What follows are encounters with the animals. Now herds of antelopes feeding on grass, groups of buffaloes wandering, and zebras minding their business. Among so many animals enjoy their stay here. Kidepo hosts more than 77 mammals and about 475 birds and 692 plant species. The park has 28 unique animal species not found anywhere else in Uganda. Kidepo offers more adventures to top your Ugandan experience, such as camping, birding, nature walks, among others. This park has over 180 staff who are mostly law enforcement agents. These are armed by government to mainly curb poachers.
Oh yeah, no, but if you went up to the side, up the other side, yeah, you'll be able to see.
For more Pearl of Africa stories, visit our website, which is newvision.co.uk/Pearl of Africa. A newspaper, the Sunday Vision, is also another home of adventures. Grab your copy every Sunday for Pearl of Africa stories. We now take a look at our special report today, now ahead of the presentation of the 2019-2020 national budget this Thursday. New Vision TV continues with a series tracing Uganda's economic performance using the budgets since 1986.
Yesterday, we focused on the government's rocky start in 1986. The country was broke, and the finance minister, then Professor Ponciano Mulema, had to grope around for money. Those were desperate days. Looking back makes today even better. In today's part, we focus on how the government took some radical measures to turn the economy around. In the 1987-88 budget, new Finance Minister Crispus Chiyonga reported that the tarmacking of the Mityana Mubende Fort Portal Road and the rehabilitation of the Kampala International Hotel was thanks to barter deals over crops, most likely coffee. Both projects were undertaken by Energy Grow Project, a contractor from Yugoslavia, then still a single country in Eastern Europe. Yugoslavia is long off the world map after it imploded, giving birth to Bosnia and Herzegovina, Croatia, Serbia, Slovenia, Macedonia, and Montenegro. People refer with mockery to the NRM's barter trade days, but these were a response to a difficult situation, and the arrangements were never intended to be a permanent way of trading with world markets. Chiyonga reported in that budget that the country was suffering severe balance of payments problems, with inflows from abroad outweighed by the outflows to pay for debt repayments, imported goods and services. He said the balance of payments position had deteriorated to minus $58.5 million in 1984 from $32.9 million in 1982. He was speaking in 1987, and one can expect this position had worsened by then. This may be a small figure when seen against our present reality, but the 1984 negative position was 30% of our total exports in 1986. The barter trade was a stopgap measure to get the economy back on its feet as they negotiated for aid from the donor community. Barter trade didn't last because Uganda was not producing anything in the volumes or of the quality to pay potential suppliers of capital goods and equipment needed to rehabilitate industries and infrastructure. Another desperate measure taken was the currency reform of 1987, which looped off 2 zeros and charged a 30% tax on all liquid assets, while controversial, had the double benefit to the government of raising badly needed revenue through the levying of the 30% tax and reducing the money in circulation to that extent. If one had 1 million shillings, 2 zeros were dropped, making it 10,000. And after a 30% tax, it became 7,000.
This budget, just as this budget was being done, or shortly before this budget was being done, they had a currency reform. And the currency reform involved removing 2 zeros from the currency at the time. So if you had a budget of 1.1 trillion the year before, it should be about 10 billion. In this year that we're talking about. That's why the figures shifted so dramatically.
Another controversial initiative was the liberalization of the trade in foreign exchange through the legalizing of forex bureaus, a decision that was taken in the 1990-1991 budget. Prior to this, to get hard currency legally, one had to apply to the Bank of Uganda. Because of the serious need for this hard currency for essential imports, the central bank prioritized the little foreign currency they had for imports of plant and machinery, medicines and agriculture imports at a prescribed official rate, which barely reflected the reality in the market. The world price of coffee had shed $1 between 1986 and 1990 when Chiyonga reported the country's crop had faced an average of $1.25, sending our coffee exports receipts plummeting by 60% during the period. So liberalizing the market was a counterintuitive maneuver intended to attract more hard currency into the country as the shilling became fully convertible. It was evident that significant amounts were changing hands on the Chibanda market. Why not bring them out into the open and tax them as well? In light of the competing demands for its resources, government finally decided it could no longer hold up the coffee sector, and in his 1991-1992 budget speech, Chiyonga announced that the State Monopoly Coffee Marketing Board had been disbanded and 4 coffee unions authorized to export coffee. By this time, our coffee prices on the world market had fallen below $1 a kilo, and clearly farmers were voting with their feet, leading to reduction in coffee exported to 2 million bags from the previous year's 2.3 million bags. With this one stroke, government stopped trying to fight the market by trying to pay farmers better than the world market would allow, passed on the burden to the private sector.
Interestingly, at the time, something we don't do now, we used to tax coffee exports. In fact, coffee export tax revenues accounted for 80% of the budget of the revenues we collected.
Wow.
Coffee alone. So it was in our interest that we export as much coffee as we can. So if we don't, our budget would suffer. And that's why also we had to cut back on our budget. The revenues from coffee just didn't come in.
Against criticism that they were sounding the death knell of the coffee industry, it caught a second wind, and the liberalization was just in time to take advantage of a coffee boom, the type the industry had not seen since 1976. Next, a new finance minister steps on the stage. Joash Mayanja-Nkanji, in his maiden 1992-1993 speech, lamented that just when they thought they had got inflation under control, the previous year's budget, that was heavily reliant on donor support, which did not materialize, had forced the government's hand. The opening of the taps led to a 51% increase in money in circulation. As a result, inflation jumped to 63% from the previous year's 29%. To correct the error, government took drastic actions, including cutting the budget by 17%, which cut was applied only to the fourth quarter of the 1991-1992. He introduced the Treasury bill auction as a means to mop up excess liquidity and boosted efforts to improve revenue collections. The government's measures worked better than anticipated. That in the next year, Mayanja-Nkanji was proud to announce that inflation had plummeted to minus 1.3%. Inflation is never to reach the late 1992 levels of 40% until 19 years later, when inflation peaked at 30% in October 2011 due to a combination of regional drought and election campaign-related expansion of money in circulation. With the taming of inflation through controlling government expenditure and the use of treasury bills and bonds to mechanically suck money out of circulation, government has been able to consistently hit its target of 5% annual inflation since. This has had its downside as government has expanded its borrowing from the public. But the central bank is adamant that in the absence of increased productivity in the economy, their use of monetary instruments will continue in defense against inflation. The critics say that the government is crowding out the private sector and is solely responsible for high lending rates that obtain in the market today. In an attempt to bring down lending rates, government embarked on the controversial sale of the Uganda Commercial Bank, whose branch expansion to 136 at one time increased lending to rural farmers, and a crude attempt at crony capitalism almost failed the country's biggest lender.
That is all we had for you. Thank you for watching. Be sure to catch more news updates and other programs here on New Vision TV by visiting our website, which is newvision.co.uk/video. You can also follow us on social media. Facebook is The New Vision, Twitter is @NewVisionY, Instagram is @NewVisionY, and our YouTube channel is New Vision TV. Catch up with me on my Twitter handle. I am Ruth the Voice. Have a good night, but we end with a fact file.